You wanted to speak about Marie Kayali?
Yeah, well, basically, part of this whole awakening up process was, as soon as I left Sky, I was approached by a very lovely lady called Joanne Summerscales, a very fine lady, and she spent several weeks, if not a month or two, convincing me to join, create, or be part of the source creation of the AMMACH project, the Anomalous Mind Managed Abductee Contact Me Helpline. Richard D. Hall phoned me up and told me that, I don't think he phoned me, I think he sent it on an email. He told me flat out, Miles, AMMACH is compromised and it ain't you. Who else? So the only other person was Joanne. So I've been suspicious of Joanne's motives since day one, and she's always been, I repeat that she's a very lovely lady, and on the surface there was a great deal of positive work done. But we're now in a situation where, as I said, the whole point of the AMMACH, from my point of view, was to produce as many upfront recorded cases as possible on television and get it up there. And a lot of them have been broadcast on mainstream television, in that a lot of them are aired on, Nick Pope was aired on Edge TV.
I suppose the question would be, why did you stick with Joanna?
I stuck with Joanna because I stuck with the cause of exposing the witnesses and getting them out there, and that was my focus at all times, was to deal with the witnesses and was to get them up and out there as best as possible. And there's a couple of witnesses we've had to pull their interviews, because one girl who was an abductee, very psychic, her child was clearly a starseed, a brilliant child, and this was taken off her as soon as she reported her alien abduction to the police. But to be fair, she also reported it in a state of some distress, because she'd broken up with a boyfriend who simply could not handle. He was a co-abductee and he simply couldn't handle the events. She could understand it. But the first thing, as John Shelton, an AMMACH witness, has described in great detail, is how the National Health Service is specifically set up to actively target.
Okay, on.
Okay.
Right, we were talking about the start of the AMMACH project. So really, the AMMACH project was originally an idea that was put together by David Griffin and a couple of the other guys up at the Exopolitics, up in the guys up in Nottingham. I think it probably involved the Dave Hodrian, who's a brilliant guy, does BUFOG and does one of the best new organisations running around doing very important work. He's got a lot of forum stuff and does a very good job, first class. And so the thing was that like all coincidences, there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to this kind of activity. So as soon as essentially I was fired at Sky TV for revealing severe wrongdoing and other mind control activities happening at Sky, a whole pile of things going on, all at the same time, my studio was involved with the studio I was involved with was the various scandals involving certain presenters. I warned them that Sky was under attack, and then a few months later, you've got the hacking scandal, Murdoch and the whole management team in the Westminster situation. So I feel very strongly that I've been validated 110% with what I've been dealing with, particularly with the way that certain of the management who were involved with that have, in a process of about the last 18 months, been well and truly thrown out of Sky and no explanations given, which means Sky may be addressing its issues, but I suspect very strongly that there's still a lot more to go there.
Okay.
So the point about the AMMACH thing is that Joanne basically turned up hot on the heels of me leaving Sky, and another very nice lady called Sarah Stanger was involved with that as well, because Sarah was one of the first people. So I've already said that Richard D. Hall told me that Joanne was a compromised individual. He never told me why or any reason what that's about. I made that public many times before. The important thing was to deal with the project, to make a splash. I used the Star Trek analogy of the Star Trek shuttle going to re-enter into this planet's atmosphere, running out of fuel, And so rather than dribbling along in dribs and drabs, the idea was make a big splash, get noticed, get the stuff up there. And that's what I've been doing at great personal expense. Right, now the point about this is that what's kind of a long story short, coming right up to the present day, that there was a documentary which was produced by Off the Fence Productions and aired on Channel 4 in the middle of June 2013. And it's interesting that I'm scratching my left shoulder, because this kind of thing can have little entities sitting on the side. I have had somebody email me and say that they had a little grey in one of the recordings, but I have to take a lot of that skeptically, because it could be encoding artifacts in the actual encoding. So the point is that for about 10 to 12 months, Off the Fence Productions, we were working with Off the Fence Productions in Bristol. Very nice people. We had lots of very nice meetings with them. It was a big thrill. We put a whole lot of conditions, and Joanne was very insistent on that. They absolutely loved Joanne. I mean, Joanne is an absolutely beautiful lady. You've got an awful lot going for her. She's a lovely lady, but I'm afraid that when it comes to certain issues, that isn't quite the case. So the point is that we really thought I actually believed the production company when they were going to say they were going to do a serious documentary, and I failed to notice the telltale signs that this was a complete setup and a total disaster. And I'm guilty as charged. I should have protected the witnesses earlier on. Joanne took full possession of the witnesses. She would not let me. She actually told me not to phone or contact Chantal, and she actually forbade me from contacting Marie. And whilst saying that, she let Marie hang out to dry, and Marie was in extreme distress on the weeks leading up to the transmission of the program. Now, because we thought we were being treated honestly. Now the point is, now that it's over, Marie and Chantal and Simon have been making some comments saying that they knew they were being tricked, but they seeked reassurances. Marie certainly got a lot of that in writing. Marie said, I am not happy with this and not happy with that, and she was given reassurances. I personally said, I do not want the front of my house to be on camera, because every Tom, Dick and Harry can come in and see it. So I didn't want the front of my house to be in it, and of course, you know, when they asked could you actually welcome Marie into the house, I realised that I was dealing with a bunch of liars, but I didn't realise it. I took note that this was a specific thing that I didn't want to happen, now happening. He was taking lots of shots and covers. Now either the producers concerned of the program didn't tell the director, producer, editor, guy, BAFTA award-winning director, that this was not to be the case. But I mean, his basic stance from the word go was, he put on this pathetic, you really just, are you sure you got out of bed this morning? Are you sure? Miles, did you get out of bed this morning? He would put this kind of voice on. Really, Miles, do you really want a cup of coffee? Oh really? Are you that stupid? Do you want a cup of coffee? So his whole approach, his whole style of questioning during the entire documentary was, are you sure you're abductee? Do you not think it's rather strange? Really? You're just a thick, stupid person who's just having silly things, and we're going to laugh at you? Kind of voice, tone of voice. Yeah. That was the whole style from day one. So that was a red rag to the bull, and really should have thrown him out of the house, but didn't do that. And it's gone to air. People who don't know what we actually said, and people who don't know what we actually thought we were going to get out of this, won't realise that this was a massive sabotage, stab in the back, in the throat, in the stomach, and crushing blow to the abductees and their faith that they put in this crew to get them to open up. The product placement of Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think, is a huge mistake by the company, because on the one hand they've got Kentucky Fried Chicken in there, they've also got a product placement on the program, and they also have an advertisement which follows the product placement, which I think is a violation of Broadcasting Act, of Broadcasting Code of Practice. I could be wrong, because they've changed things in terms of product placement, but to associate your product with a person who's been shown to be a complete silly, stupid person, is that a good thing? Or is it a good thing to associate your product that if you eat Kentucky Fried Chicken, you'll be abducted by aliens?
Wow, yeah.
Or if you eat
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, you'll be shown up to be a liar and a fraud on national television. Is that the good association that Kentucky Fried Chicken want with a product placement that's been put in the program about these people? These are people who've experienced traumatic things in their lives, and they have been laughed at and totally decimated, their characters totally decimated by Channel 4, so they get a bunch of cheap ratings to beat Big Brother. That, to my mind, I think that Channel 4 is a vomit of a television channel that should lose its license immediately. These people are vulnerable, they are suffering extreme distress, and they've come to the AMMACH project for help, and they've been screwed. Joanne has not given the backup that she said she was doing, that she, as a therapist, she banned me from actually getting in contact with these witnesses. I've now taken the forward step and being proactive with it. Simon actively pushed and separated himself from the AMMACH project quite early on. He could see very dangerous issues with Marie, they've had a hell of a ride together, and Joanne. Now the point about Marie is that she is, as a professional, highly respected individual, has, I think from a professional character point of view, had a very serious slur and damage put on her character. And I think that she should pursue that to the full extent of full legal action against Channel 4, who have hung her out to dry.
Yeah, they did.
And their concern has been, oh, if you feel bad, go and see A&E. Well, Marie has seen quite a few very talented individuals to give her assistance and help, and the one thing she doesn't need is A&E. That's what I'm saying. Gang stalkers, that's to say a collective of initially on the face of it, completely unconnected individuals in the police service and medical nursing profession, the mental health profession, in a variety of disconnected areas, have acted as a group. That's called a gang stalk. No matter where you go or what happens, there's somebody there who's already ahead of the game, who's going to work against your interests. And I've recorded 5, possibly 6 interviews with Marie. He specifically talks about this in great detail, and now that's up there for her to deal with, to talk about. Now the point, she's being character assassinated in this television program. She stands her ground, does the research with all the information and stuff being given to her, and that tells me that Marie Kayali is one of the finest, most intelligent, most brilliant people I've ever met. She is an absolutely brilliant, wonderful individual and strong, excellent woman. She's also been diagnosed with a whole pile of implants, which we did in the States with ANS Research, who is coming to England in August, and if anybody wants to get checked for implants, he's able to do that. And now when we say getting checked for implants, it's using a series of technologies, from a very high energy ultraviolet lights to various forms of magnetic field strength meters, electric field strength meters, Geiger counters, simple things like stud finders which check variable density issues within a substance, in this case bone or your body. So all these various things are available to give very strong indications that you've got an implant. Now it just turns out that Marie had a MRI scan, very detailed 34 image, I think, or possibly 36 image brain scan done on her in 2010.
Yeah.
Again, 2010 keeps coming
Yeah.
up. Now, the point about this is that she sent me and she sent Jane of Off the Fence Productions one of those pictures, which is a full mid-head scan, which includes the eyes,
Yeah.
being basically cutting through the eyes at this level, right? And on her left eye, and I'm not an expert in this by any means at all, but my observing of this shadow, this very regular shaped shadow, which looks like a small, slightly curved rectangle, is in her left eye. That's the eye that gave her all the issues.
Yes.
On the
It was bloodshot and it looked like something sticking out.
Well, that indicates, based on what we were shown at the Super Soldier Summit, which I'll speak about shortly, that there is an artificial implant of some kind in her left eye.
Wow.
Now that's a professional MRI scan. Now that would need analysed properly by neutral doctors to actually see what that's all about. Now I'm not quite sure why she had the MRI scan, but it's that kind of test that we needed to have done on Marie Kayali, not an extremely simple DNA test. And the doctor who performed the DNA test, Marie, told me that he was leaned on to give a negative result. All of that was kept quiet. Now she's had a polygraph test where that's now subject to legal action because the polygraph test, the guy who performed the polygraph test feels that his reputation has been defamed by Marie defending herself on the basis of his test, which he will not allow anybody else to see, even though he said at the time he would allow others to look at his results. But as far as anybody else is concerned, he sat down and proclaimed that she was a barefaced liar.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, those are not the exact words,
No,
but
I know.
the essence is
just-
that she's been shown to be a complete liar.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that is gross defamation of character.
Yes.
And if you're not prepared to back that up by showing, okay, these are the results, these are my scans, this is the methodology that I use to do the test, and that is why I stand by and say that this woman is a liar, because my test, which I have validated and I am saying happened under these circumstances, I stand by with my polygraph association. That would be fair. But no, that's not the case. He won't show us the results, which should be interpreted by other people. During the test, there was a massive set of fire alarms or fire sirens, which is on the unedited 2 hours, which I shot during the test. I was asked to do that by Channel 4, or Off the Fence Productions more accurately, and I was filmed doing that. And on the commentary of the program, it states Miles was filming this to put on the net. Well, I filmed it, I put it on the net, you got 2 hours of it there. Channel 4 said that on the TV, I've done it, okay? So don't tell me that I haven't got permission to do this, right? Now on that, now it's not unedited, it's just whatever we shot when we were shooting the camera. That's very important.
Yeah.
And there's a huge section that was lost, which wasn't actually shot, where things got very, very bad between Marie and the tester, and in fact, Off the Fence people then had to go in and almost break up a fight.
Wow.
It got very bad indeed. He then basically scarpered and hightailed it. He'd said he would show his results to other person for independent analysis, and he's refused to do that since.
Wow.
So the point is that Off the Fence were shocked by her failure at the test. But when you've got a whole set of sirens outside, wailing sirens and ambulances and God knows what else happening outside, and on the locked off camera that I show, you can see that she's clearly getting very aggravated. Well, what's going on? That test should have been stopped. The whole thing should have been started again.
Agreed.
Okay, let's have another go. But the point that Marie has said, and I have to be careful with this, but her analysis of his method is, and this is open, anybody can look this up, his particular 4-question test, it has been suggested by research has been grossly discredited. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that it seems that if you do the research, that method of polygraph testing has been discredited.
Right.
I may be wrong about that, so
Okay.
that needs to be sorted out.
Yeah.
May very well be a completely valid form of polygraph test, but there is gross and severe doubt as to whether it is accepted universally as a valid form of polygraph test.
Okay.
Now, both the questions, the type of questions, and the way he chatted her up is also open for certain debate and discussion, and these needed to be sorted out, by professional people you can trust. And I'm not saying we can't trust this particular guy who did the test, but there are simply too many questions in the way this was operated, and so this has crucially been used on the broadcast to discredit her and to destroy her reputation as a liar, including the DNA test, which is the wrong. If you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get the wrong answers.
Sure.
So this woman who came to the AMMACH project for assistance has ended up going up on television, and her life's in a mess. I mean, she's one of the most abducted people in Britain, but because she's a thin lady with a quirky hairstyle, and they loved her accent. They loved the way, her lovely humour, that she was able to deal with this. And when she was here, she was a beautiful lady, very, very warm, very nice. It was a wonderful interview. We had a lovely time. She is dealing with extreme trauma by using a degree of humour. And I've listened to her when she's been absolutely distraught and suicidal. And Channel 4, send her up. What a silly, quirky person. Okay, maybe on second thoughts, maybe Joanne, who should have been there to deal with all this but wasn't, maybe she should have had a different hairstyle. Maybe she shouldn't have been used at all. Maybe we should have, critics have said we should have had the most dull, boring people. But we didn't. We had women and people of good character who've honestly having terrible things done to them, and they've been slaughtered by the media and Channel 4 for the purposes of cheap ratings against a contractual row and screw up that they had with Big Brother when they had to cancel it for whatever reasons they had to cancel it for. It was starting up on the rival network, and they wanted a quirky, happy, slappy, stupid, banal and disgraceful program to go up in prime time and then follow it with a sex toys thing. These people have been completely discredited. Now the point about it is that the people who were also on Skype, who were filmed during the process of that, they've complained to me that on the program, phrases that were used, that they spoke, they didn't actually speak at the time. What happened was they took bits of phrases, this is what they're arguing, they took bits of what they said up and before that. These sentences were messed around with, so that when they inserted them out of context, they made them look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And they're very pissed off about that. Simon took an awful lot more control of his shoot with Channel 4. He knew what was going to happen. He's expressed that he knew that they'd make the whole thing look silly. He has been misedited in that he said that we are being followed, but there was a whole section that the MOD demanded was removed from that, where they did some shooting up at Fylingdales. The MOD phoned up and demanded that material was removed, and I suspect very strongly that the MOD basically went off the fence, sat down and hacked that documentary to bits. They put in Nick Pope from very old clips from British Forces television, stuck that in there, and I would suspect they even exceeded the Channel 4 quota for standard definition television being included in a high definition program. Because when I went over to the States to shoot stuff which was going to be used in the Channel 4 program about the alien implant detection from ANS research out there at the UFO Congress, I had to shoot in full high def So what I normally do is I shoot in a slightly lower resolution of high defs, which means it can be recorded easily onto high definition HDV tape, which means I can archive my material on videotape and not on hard drives. But in order to satisfy their particular requirements for the program, I shot in full HD, which means I can't archive it on videotape.
Right.
The point about that is none of that was used. Not
Complete
one.
waste of time.
None of it was used.
Filming.
Anything which actually showed the material, actual physical, ultraviolet physical changes in the body, the skin. When an alien or whatever these creatures are, when they physically touch you, they change the molecular structure very slightly, or they leave a residue, a dye or something on your body, which if you look at in ultraviolet, ultraviolet B or ultraviolet C, you will see very clearly a mark or a handprint, or where they've touched you, whatever they've done to you, you will see that very clearly with luminescent colours that something has touched you. And in the test that happened at the UFO Congress in Phoenix in February, Joanne and Marie were both contacted or exposed to this kind of stuff at the same time.
Wow.
Okay, so
Yeah.
basically that's it as far as that program is concerned. Now the point about it is that just before that, Joanne phoned me up finally. No, I don't think she phoned me. I was on the phone to her because just before I went out to Tenerife, Marie was being spammed with the most grotesque Trojan abusive comments. I've already had to take them down for Chantel. Chantel's comments, there were several people absolutely after her, and this is a technique that's now happening on YouTube. Trojans are going in there and actually attacking people very viciously.
Okay.
Now to weed that out, to weed each user out and to go through it and block it on each individual video takes a long time. I physically didn't have a long time to do this. I had literally about an hour. So the safest way to make sure that Marie was kept safe and free of all the abusive comments and to get rid of the abusive comments was simply take the whole lot down. I took a whack of the AMMACH videos down just before I went. I was away for about 4 days. Joanne freaked out, went ballistic. But the main thing was that Marie had those comments removed, and it meant that Marie was happier and safe.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think Marie is a fantastic person.
Yeah.
But the point was that Joanne simply wasn't having any of this.
Wow.
She was not taking any duty of care with Marie.
Yeah.
And there was a very, very dark undercurrent there. And there have been rumours put out that there's some kind of dossier being compiled on me in a similar way that another AMMACH witness infiltrated into the project, and sole purpose was to cause chaos and vilification and destruction. Now the point about all this is, with rank absolutely unforgivable practices by Channel 4, I have not considered a formal complaint yet, but I feel that they are absolutely a despicable and charlatan organisation which should have its licence removed. There are deaths involved with this now, and they are unforgivably in contempt of every single honourable issue with regard to the broadcasting.
Yeah.
Ofcom appear to be, oh, we can't do anything. So basically this is a situation where vulnerable people, serious things are happening to them, they've come for help and now being screwed by the broadcasters.
Yeah.
And I feel that the AMMACH situation with regard to Joanne, we're only being 2 people, but we dropped down to was 4. We had lots of therapists who came towards the AMMACH project, all of whom were essentially dropped by the wayside. Joanne, I know, is now concentrating on looking after children with abduction or experience of things. I think that's absolutely wrong and shouldn't happen. That's my personal opinion. As I say, I've said on many occasions that Joanne is a lovely woman, fantastic woman, but when she admits herself that she's a lizard to an AMMACH witness, I think that she's let the cat out of the bag, and I'll leave that there at that particular point. So the next thing we're talking about is probably a glass of water and you can hit stop.
Yes.